What if I told you that you could make $1 million in 24 hours, even if today you are buried in debt, with no savings, no assets, no family connections, no wealthy friends to lend a hand? What if I told you that you could cross from poverty into prosperity faster than the clock strikes its next cycle? Even if you have failed in business, wasted years drifting, and find yourself now with nothing to show but regret? You would call me extreme. You would laugh in disbelief. You would whisper to yourself, "It cannot be so." But I tell you, I have seen fortunes turn in a single day. I have witnessed wealth rush toward a man as sudden as a storm, while his neighbor waited decades in vain. And I say to you now, it is not chance, it is not accident, it is not luck, it is law. A law hidden from the multitude because they would rather mock than obey. A law the rich will never shout from the rooftops because they know most men will not pay the price of definiteness. You are thinking, how? How could this be? Do not rush. If I were to give you the answer in one word, you would dismiss it as too simple, too unbelievable. That is why I will not hand you the treasure in a sentence. I will walk you into it law by law until your own mind cannot escape the conclusion. By the end of this speech, you will not only believe that great wealth can arrive in 24 hours, you will know why and how. But before I show you, let me place a warning before your eyes. If you treat this as mere entertainment, if you drift while you listen, if you take these words as inspiration but not as command, you will gain nothing. You will walk away exactly as you came, poor, doubtful, waiting for someday. This law does not honor the lazy. It bows only to the definite. Think of this. Why does one man remain stuck for 30 years in the same misery, while another secures his fortune in a single day? Why does one man accumulate nothing but bills and disappointment, while another walks into opportunity as though it were prepared for him alone? The difference is not education, not inheritance, not connections. It is something far greater, far more mysterious, and far more available to you than to the men who pretend to be your betters. Frank W. Gonzalez discovered it when he stood in his pulpit and declared, "What I would do if I had $1 million." He had no million, no wealthy allies, no earthly reason to expect that his words would be answered. Yet within 24 hours the fortune was his. Not because of chance, but because his words carried definiteness, desire, faith, and decision. He preached as though the money were already in his hands, and by morning the world had obeyed him. This is the law you are about to hear. The law that riches flee from vagueness and leap toward definiteness. The law that time itself bends when desire burns white hot. The law that money, already in circulation, is drawn to the man who commands it with purpose. You will not hear this in schools. You will not hear this from the mouths of the rich, but you will hear it here. So listen carefully as though your future depends upon it, because it does. For the next few minutes, let every other thought fall away. Hold nothing but this question in your mind. What if I too could awaken tomorrow on the road to fortune? By the end of this speech, that question will no longer be fantasy. It will be a command you can issue, if you will. Introduction. The hour hand of riches obeys fire. You ask me how soon riches will answer your call. I tell you plainly, wealth comes at the speed of your burning desire, and not one moment sooner. Men wait on years, on seasons, on fortune, while the law of riches waits on them. If a man sets his heart aflame with such intensity that his thought becomes command, the world of causes bends swiftly, sometimes in years, sometimes in days, sometimes in hours. This law is not theory, it is record. I have seen fortunes move with the suddenness of a storm after months of stillness. The timid call it luck, but the honest student knows it as the sudden reward of desire that at last reached the heat of command. When the heart burns white hot, time itself contracts. What would take decades to the wavering may take a night to the definite. Let me show you this truth through the story of Frank W. Gonzalez, a young minister in Chicago. He announced a sermon with the daring title, "What I Would Do If I Had $1 Million." He did not mount the pulpit as a beggar hoping for alms. He spoke as one who already held the key. His words carried no timidity, no speculation. They carried decision. He painted a vision of a school where young men would be trained to think and to work in the same hour, where education would not be theory without practice, nor practice without philosophy. He spoke as though the $1 million were already in his hands, as though the brick and mortar already stood, as though the voices of grateful students already rang in its halls. The next morning, a messenger came from Philip D. Armour, the great packer. "Young man," Armour said, "if you will put your sermon into deeds, you shall have your $1 million." And from that decision was born the Armour Institute of Technology. Do not miss the lesson. One definite desire declared with fire drew $1 million overnight. What steps brought that $1 million? First, a purpose written in the heart so clearly it could not be mistaken. Second, a mind heated by faith until every word carried authority. Third, a plan spoken so vividly that listeners saw it. Fourth, the courage to speak as one who commands, not as one who begs. With those 4 steps, the $1 million was not chased. It arrived. Men ask me, can wealth truly come in 24 hours? I say, if 30 years of drifting still chain you, do not quarrel with the clock. Quarrel with the drift. Yet know this, when desire reaches the heat of command, fortunes do indeed arrive with astonishing speed. Many men have awakened one morning poor and lain down at night rich, for they finally decided. You must learn to distinguish wishing from desiring. Wishes are smoke, desire is fire. Wishes drift with idle talk. Desire fixes its eyes, burns in silence, and moves the limbs to action. Frank Gonzalez did not wish. He declared. Armour did not pity. He invested. The $1 million did not stroll. It hurried, because purpose had summoned it with unmistakable fire. Understand this law. Wealth is not drawn by chance, but by definiteness. Riches are timid around the wavering. They leap toward the bold. The money you seek is already employed by someone else. It will change hands when you prove the stronger master. The purse of the world is not scattered at random. It flows to order, to clarity, to strength. Do not waste your breath on luck. Luck is the name weak men give to the harvest of definite men. When you hear a rich man shrug, "I was fortunate," look behind him. You will see ledgers of definite figures, pages of plans, councils of allies, records of services rendered before reward. He speaks of fortune because he knows the crowd will not believe in method, but method is what crowned him. And now you would know the method. Here are the 7 rules that, when obeyed together, form the band success formula. They will sound like iron to ears, softened by drift, but to the ready they are keys to command. Use one without the others and you will limp. Use all together and you will run. Before you take the first step, bind yourself to a vow. Say aloud, "I will no longer drift. I will write my purpose. I will heed it with faith. I will bind myself by decision. I will plan and move. I will enlist allied minds. I will give more than I am paid, and I will insist upon results." That vow is your passport across the border that separates drifters from masters. Ask me again how soon wealth can arrive, and I answer with the story you have just heard. The distance between want and wealth was 1 night's sleep. The sermon was not magic. It was definiteness with heat. The same law is waiting upon you now. If your desire is lukewarm, do not accuse the law. Kindle your fire, and the hour hand itself will hurry. Rule 1, write the decree. The world obeys definiteness. Wealth begins not in vaults, but on paper. The first act of a master is to put his purpose into writing. The drifting man talks in clouds. The definite man writes in stone. Take your pen and decree the exact sum you will possess, the date by which it will be yours, and the service you shall give in return. A man who will not write will not reign. Paper without ink is the birthplace of drifting. You may speak with zeal, you may dream with fervor, but